You know that feeling, right? I mean, you've been doing everything you're supposed to do. Praying, serving.
Right, you're trying to walk the line, and then nothing.
Exactly. A wall of silence. Doors that you think should be wide open just slam shut. Opportunities, they just dry up.
And you start to feel that deep frustration.
Yeah, and that little whisper starts, the one that says, am I just forgotten?
That feeling,
Mm.
that intense sense of being stuck or even rejected, that is exactly what we're getting into today.
Okay.
Because the sources we've been looking at, they all deal with this idea of spiritual formation, and they have this radically counterintuitive take on it.
Which is?
That this feeling of loss, of delay,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a punishment, it's not abandonment, it's actually a necessary phase.
Okay, let's unpack that right away, because that just runs against everything we're taught. We think readiness is about strength, that effort should equal results.
Of course. But this material frames that whole period of waiting and suffering as the deliberate process. They call it formation and dismantling.
Dismantling. That sounds intense.
It is. And the core idea that just keeps popping up is, well, it's startling. It's that before a profound purpose is fulfilled, he breaks them.
Wow.
But the breaking isn't random or mean. It's described as being surgical. Its whole purpose is to get rid of everything that's wrong inside.
And that includes the stuff we think is good, right? Like our own good intentions.
Especially that stuff, the motivations, the strategies, the strengths that we've kind of disguised as faith.
So if we've been focused on what's happening on the outside, the next opportunity, getting noticed, we might be looking in completely the wrong place.
That's it. The problem is often the internal structure. It's too rigid, too self-reliant. It's just not built to carry what's coming. And that's where this deep dive gets really challenging.
So the sources, they immediately lay out this pattern. They use these big historical figures who went through these extreme detours.
Yeah, it shows that the path from getting a promise to actually seeing it come true is almost never a straight line.
It's always a journey into the unexpected, the counterintuitive.
Think about Joseph. He gets these incredible dreams about leadership, about authority.
And then what happens?
The absolute opposite. Betrayal from his own brothers. He's thrown in a pit, sold, and then, unjustly thrown in prison. The vision was huge, but the preparation for it was just catastrophic.
So what was being broken in him during all that time? I mean, a teenager with big dreams, he needs some confidence, right?
He needed confidence, yes, but the sources argue he needed the arrogance removed. That early confidence was all tied up at his position, his dad's favor. The pit, the prison, that stripped away his reliance on status, on family.
Yeah.
It taught him patience, how to lead when no one is watching.
So his ability to rule Egypt later was actually forged in a dungeon.
It was completely dependent on it. He had to learn humility first.
And then you've got Moses. He starts with every advantage.
Yeah.
Educated, rich, right there in Egypt, the center of the world.
And yet, his real training for leadership meant 40 years, just tending sheep in the desert. 40 years of total anonymity.
So what was that doing?
Those 40 years in Midian, they weren't just about waiting. They were about stripping him of that royal confidence, that worldly way of doing things he learned in Egypt.
He tried it his way first, right, when he killed the Egyptian.
And it failed. Completely.
Yeah.
So God had to replace his trust and power in education, in his own strength, with total dependence on, of all things, a shepherd's staff.
That's such a powerful image.
It's this huge lesson.
Yeah.
Your worldly expertise is often the very thing you have to set aside for the real work.
It feels like the lesson is, if you're still relying on what you were, you can't step into what you have to become.
That's the core of it. The sources say God doesn't use those who are still too whole.
Too whole? What does that mean?
If you're still too self-sufficient, you don't bend. You don't really listen. And crucially, you don't depend on a power outside yourself.
So the crisis, the setback, that's actually intentional.
It's allowed. Because, as the sources say, it's on your knees that you learn to listen.
This reminds me of that Watchman Nee quote that was woven into the material, the idea that God isn't looking for these perfect, beautiful vessels.
For broken ones.
Yes.
And he says it's because it is through the cracks that his life can flow. The vessel itself, it wants to protect its reputation, its perfect plan.
But the breaking is what lets the light out.
It lets the light out, and it forces you into a total, complete dependence. because all your own strategies have failed. You have to draw from a different well.
Okay, so when we talk about this dismantling, we have to talk about the fight that happens inside.
The internal battle, yeah.
Because if this is really a surgical process, it must feel awful. Like we're resisting it, we're complaining, we're asking for the pressure to stop.
When the pressure is the tool.
Exactly. Our desire is always for the external stuff, for visibility, recognition of results.
And that resistance is so natural because the things being removed are so tangled up with our identity. We want the outcome, but we try so hard to avoid the process, the cross that comes before it.
So what specific layers, as the sources call them, are we talking about? Because the self needs to die can sound like, intense jargon. What does it actually mean day to day?
It means the forced removal of your coping mechanisms. The sources point to 4 big areas. First is getting rid of false security.
Like what? A job? Money?
Anything you rely on that isn't God, your job title, your savings account, even a specific relationship you lean on. Second, the need for approval.
Why is that one so toxic, the need for approval?
Because if you need people to approve of you, you're a slave to their opinions. You can be manipulated.
Right.
So if God asks you to walk a path that's unpopular or silent or that no one understands, the person who needs approval just can't do it. They'll quit. The process has to remove that vulnerability.
Okay, so that's 2. What are the other areas?
The third is this really painful realization that what was thought to be strength but was actually pride.
Ooh.
Yeah, the strength that relied on your brain or your effort and not on him. And the fourth is the death of personal control. This process, it empties you. It stops everything. It undoes all the clever plans you made on your own.
The material calls this the cross of renunciation, the cross of silence, and the cross of waiting. It seems like it's not just about refining us, but freeing us.
From ourselves.
From the need for control, for vanity, for our own logic.
It's the highest kind of freedom, really. You're not just being freed from people who hurt you or bad circumstances. You're being freed from that tyrant inside that insists things have to happen my way and right now.
Which brings us back to Watchman Nee.
It does. His point that real ministry, true purpose, only begins when the work of the cross has been completed in us.
But how do you know when that work is done?
He says it means that everything that is yours needs to die first. Your ideas, your methods, your timeline, your selfish desires, all of it has to be surrendered.
The sources use that image of a test of fire.
It's a powerful one. They argue that no matter how good your intentions were, your personal plans, the wood, hay, stubble, they just won't survive the fire.
They'll burn up.
They'll burn up.
Yeah.
What God is looking for is pure gold, not something that just looks or sounds like gold. If you still have a backup plan, an escape route, something of your own to hold on to, you're not fully surrendered.
So the fire is designed to burn away anything that isn't eternal.
Exactly. Anything that can't withstand that temperature has to go.
So you find yourself right in the middle of this deep dismantling, and it is just confusing. It's dark. The sources don't sugarcoat it at all.
No, they don't. They admit that the middle of it always seems confusing, and it's marked by pain, loss, what looks like failure.
And this is where we have to make, I think, the biggest mental shift. The idea that God's silence all the closed doors, that feeling of separation, that it's actually grace.
It's protection, deliverance. It's correction, not rejection.
Okay, I have to stop you there. Because defining silence as grace is really, really hard to wrap your head around. How do the sources explain that? How do you reconcile that severe love with feeling completely forgotten?
They define it as a love that refuses to pamper you. It's a love that values your eternal preparation way more than your immediate temporary comfort.
Wow.
So if you feel abandoned, the sources say you're actually experiencing severe love, which is building something foundational in you, something that would be corrupted if you got the answer you wanted right now.
So the closed door is actually protecting me from something I'm not ready for.
Exactly. It stops you from walking into a room you aren't yet built to sustain.
That just completely redefines faith for most of us. We think of it as a transaction. I obey, so I get an explanation or a reward.
Right. But the sources say true faith doesn't lean on explanations or logic.
It relies on what?
Just on who God is, regardless of the evidence. True faith, it says, begins exactly where understanding ends.
It's proven in the dark.
It's proven in the desert and the dark, not on a stage when everything's going great and everyone's clapping.
So the most important thing is just to keep going, to remain.
That's the key. Remaining when there's no applause, no directions, no results. And that's where obedience has to take over from emotion.
You have to act even when you don't feel it.
You choose to act even without feeling. You choose to believe when praying feels like you're just talking to the ceiling and the sky is totally silent. Faith grows in the soil of obedience, not the ups and downs of emotion.
The sources bring up that story of Abraham and Isaac to illustrate this.
It's the ultimate example, isn't it? The buried promise. Isaac was Abraham's entire future, his whole destiny.
And he had to put him on the altar.
The promise had to be buried or offered up to purify it from wrong expectations. God had to make sure that the promise itself didn't become an idol, replacing the God who gave it.
It is a test.
A test of whether you'd still follow, even if the one thing you wanted most was taken away.
So if you manage to endure this long, painful process of being stripped down, what comes out on the other side? What's the result of all that fire and silence?
The result is this profound internal silence, stability. You get to a place where you walk around knowing you have already lost everything that could hold you back.
And that creates a calm.
A strange calm, yeah. It isn't emptiness, it's a deep healing, a rootedness that doesn't depend on good circumstances or open doors anymore. You're just quiet on the inside.
And from that internal reality comes a certain kind of authority, not the loud kind that needs to announce itself.
Not at all. The authority that's gained comes from conquered pain, from proven faith, from complete surrender. It doesn't need to raise its voice or demand space because God forged it in the fire. Men didn't give it.
It just is.
It just is because it's been tested, it's been sustained.
And the sources have this amazing phrase for how this new person operates. They call it a death to old stimuli.
I love that phrase. Think about it. Someone who has died doesn't respond to the same things anymore.
You're no longer vulnerable to fear.
Or to that toxic need to impress people. Old relationships, old conversations, the ambitions that used to drive you. They just feel empty now because you've grown past them.
You don't fit in the places where you used to hide.
Exactly. It's just maturity.
So the whole focus shifts.
It completely shifts. The new path isn't about doing, but about being. It's about intimacy with your source of strength, not just frantic activity.
You're finally able to carry the real weight of glory.
Because you're no longer living for the applause.
It's a total realignment, like you're living by a completely new map.
That's the final alignment. You're no longer living by opportunity, chasing every shiny thing that comes along, but by design. You're aligned with heaven's perfect timing.
And the whole purpose of all that pain, all that breaking,
was to create someone who no longer lives for themselves. Someone who is finally ready to carry something eternal, who knows their worth is secure on the inside, not based on what's happening on the outside. Hashtag outro. So when we look back at it all, that painful process was never a punishment. It was never a waste of your time. It was the deepest kind of care. It was preparation.
Every tear, every season of waiting, every loss, it was all used.
It was all used to forge the capacity inside you to carry something eternal. What you lost was just the scaffolding. God was making room for the permanent structure.
And what's left is the true work. The sources make it so clear that the work that really matters, it's mostly invisible. It's measured by faithfulness, not fame.
And it's sustained by someone who doesn't need proof anymore to obey. The biggest steps you take often happen in quiet rooms, in silent deserts, in decisions nobody will ever see or applaud.
The person who comes out of this is fortified by their doubt, not destroyed by it.
They know that if he hasn't failed yet, he's not about to start with them.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with from this deep dive. You are no longer living by opportunity, but by design. Now, if you really believe that your worth is already secure, that it doesn't depend on your performance or the next open door, how does that change the way you define and chase success right now? That realization, it fundamentally changes how you walk in the dark.